Terry.
Thank you. All right. My dear sister, always, Tracy's always bringing it home for us. Um, with that said, I like to invite my brother, who I gotta say, I got a lot of respect for. He's our lieutenant from New York, also retired lieutenant from New York, so love it. We've connected years ago, and he has actually spoken, and he's been very outspoken about the need for the guardians to be active in their community, but also he speaks for the community. So, without that said, my brother Edwin Raymond, it is so great to see you, and thank you for joining us. So, I'm going to give you the spotlight, my brother.
Definitely, Terry. Tracy, just before I even get into what I have to say, I have to, give my respect. That was so well said, and it spoke to me. As I've sacrificed a lot in being outspoken while being active. I just hit a year of retirement, but I was outspoken for 7 years, at the lowest rank in the NYPD, and had to claw to make it to sergeant, face charges, claw some more, and make it to lieutenant. So thank you so much for capturing everything that you said in those 5 minutes. I want to start with a little bit of background for those who don't know my story. I joined the police department back in 2008 at 22 years old. I joined with a mission. I had an objective of trying to understand the police department better, because despite growing up in a rough neighborhood, I wasn't involved in any of the illegal activities and the things that police aim to remedy, in the name of keeping us safe. Unfortunately, their tactics often include constitutional violations, and sadly, the collateral damage far outweighs the benefit, if you ask me. And I was on the receiving ends of that. So at 22 years old, I shocked everyone and joined the police department, and it took a while for me to get the perspective that I needed to see where exactly I needed to focus. It's an honor to be part of this call, and I've been watching this race very closely. I first ran into Project 2025 about December of last year, and I was very shocked that it wasn't more popular. I'm glad at this moment everyone has at least heard of it, even if they don't know all the details. I'll say this: as Black members of the service, as Black law enforcement officials, um, there's an expectation, right? Diversity should never simply be cosmetic. Diversity in law enforcement and other areas, but particularly law enforcement, it's not simply a matter of employment discrimination. Because if we simply get into the uniform and run the same program, it's the same issues in blackface, right? There's an expectation. As a little boy, the first time I saw a supervisor in the NYPD who was Black, I felt represented. I felt this person knows our struggle and will be in those rooms where decisions are made, representing us. Um, Again, as a boy, I didn't know that the system doesn't operate that way. That it's rarely done intentionally. We got to come like a wrecking ball at times, and empower ourselves in order for us to be able to get our experiences and knowledge into the fray to move the needle. So I commend everyone who makes the decision to join law enforcement, despite the reasons. And I hope everyone looks deep within themselves to do the job the way it's supposed to be done. There's no reason that we have to have constitutional and civil rights violation in the name of public safety. Before I get into why it's crucial that Vice President Harris wins this race, I do have to talk about the other guy, right? Because he's dangerous. I remember in 2016, um, I'm still in the rank of police officer in the NYPD. Hillary has this. Everyone was very confident that Hillary was going to get this done. And I remember speaking to my colleagues, because 2016 was a very important year. That summer, we had video recording live of the shooting of Philando Castile, as well as Alton Sterling, less than 24 hours apart. And tragically, within a few days in Dallas, Texas, I believe, we had five police officers killed in retaliation for those two police killings. And then 10 days after that in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, we had a repeat of that. It was a very, very difficult time in the nation. The tension was there. And then I watched as our colleagues started looking into the mirror, realizing that the heroes that they saw themselves as is not what the community saw them as. And I saw officers, even some of the most conservative white officers, finally look in the mirror and say, well, if they don't see me as a hero that I believe I am, what am I do? What are we doing wrong? What could we do better? I was shocked. All right. I was shocked to see this. And then on election night, it all changed. It all came to a stop. It went reverse. They now felt empowered. All of the conversation of self-reflection was out the door, and Trump had just become president-elect. 2.5 months later, by the time he's inaugurated, and Steve Bannon and Steve Miller and Jeff Sessions, people that don't belong anywhere near the White House, are now appointed to key positions. I watched as policing got worse. Trump gave a speech where he said, when you use your hand to make sure that a suspect doesn't hit their head as they're entering the car, you can remove the hand, and to me, that's no laughing matter. Their police brutality is nothing to joke about. So recently, at least 4 times this year, I've counted, he said police will get full immunity. So, quote, if they do something harsh to stop a crime, unquote, they don't face prosecution. In the debate against Vice President Harris, he stated that local law enforcement will be used to round up immigrants, migrants, and you can imagine what local law enforcement will be used for, because unfortunately law enforcement is very conservative. Many of them won't object. Throughout the nation, we won't have too many objections. A friend of mine has a nonprofit. He's a retired lieutenant. He has a nonprofit that aims to change how nightlife is enforced. And before he could get funding through the COPS program under Trump, they had to put language in their operation about taking down gangs. His entire model is community oriented. And yet he had to, in order to get the funding under Trump, he had to focus on gangs, which didn't even make sense based on his model. But this is what we would get if that man wins the election. And when we think of the vice president, who has a background in law enforcement, she understands that important balance between public safety and civil rights, right? That's the thing that our nation has been struggling with from inception. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, I read I think it was 136 pages. It does need some work, but it's a start. And she was one of the original sponsors, even before being announced as vice president. Actually I had the privilege of being on a call in June of 2020 when the act was first being put together. The act didn't pass in the Senate, so that is still going to take some work, and it does need some work. There are some parts that can be fortified. But the difference between having someone who has a background in law enforcement, who understands the nuances that we face as people of color, as Black people, and who can acknowledge that law enforcement needs work. I mean, there's really no other. I mean, it's pretty clear that we need Vice President Harris to become President Harris. I'm actually very worried about the alternative. Like, I think it's going to amount to violence, honestly. I'll be honest with you. I don't think we avoid violence either way, but the type of violence that would come, sanctioned violence, if that man wins, I think we have to work as hard as we can to get the people, because I feel a sense of apathy in people that they're not connected to this race, to this election, and it's scary. So as Black cops, as people of color in law enforcement, not only do we speak to our brothers and sisters in blue, but speak to our family members, and let's keep the work going. As Tracy said, we need that candidate who will sit with us and take into consideration our experiences and how we and take those experiences and help move the needle till we get something tangible. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right.
Okay. I was sitting here looking at Project 2025 when you brought it up, and I tried to put a hyperlink. Me and the hyperlinks are not working, right? But Sean will handle that. And please, if you all have any thoughts, anything you want to say, you utilize the Q&A or utilize the chat. I have a oh, so much I want to say. So Edwin, I have the program I run at Montgomery College called Community Informed Policing. As a guest speaker, we had Sergeant Aquilino Ganell from the Capitol Police as a guest speaker, and he see, I can't, when I think about it, it messes me up. He was injured on January 6th when they were attacked by the crowd, the rioters, insurrectionists, and he had to eventually retire from the job because of his injuries, both physical and mental or psychological. And he told us that when he did go back to work before he actually left in retirement, he had colleagues say to him, "Oh, you're lying. You didn't really get hurt like that." Or "You're lying. That didn't really happen." And I was floored. I was like, you are a living, walking, um, we can see you. You could see your injuries. You could see that you were limping. You could see that you were having a hard time. And they told you that you were lying because they would rather stand behind the man who was okay with people breaking into the Capitol and harming police officers, including some off-duty police officers. I'm not even sure if all the police officers were off duty. I feel like some of them ran home and changed their clothes and came back when they were called out to help protect the Capitol, but they just showed up. I don't know. But I do know that there were police officers in that crowd, which meant that there were police officers who attacked the police officers in the Capitol, including a young man who was not yet a police officer, but was in the background process for the police department that I retired from. He was indicted and he has been convicted of throwing smoke bombs and attacking, I think, other officers. So those are the things that are on the line, and I'm glad that you brought that up. I urge everyone to please, please go and take a look at Project 2025. If you have not, it is almost 1,000 pages, but you can do a search on the information that you want. Download it, because I feel like it's going to disappear one day. But download it and then do your search on those things that you think are important for you to learn about, okay?